Joining us now, Penn State lacrosse head coach Jeff Tambroni. And Coach, as you look back on the first year of Big Ten lacrosse, what stood out to you about playing in this league?
You know, I think week-to-week competition, made it both exciting but very challenging for our program and for our guys. And, each week we turned around and played another, perennial power in the sport of lacrosse. And I think it was fun for our guys. Each and every week it was challenging for our coaches to prepare, challenging for our guys to prepare. But in the end, I think that's why they came to Penn State. And with the addition of the Big Ten, conference, it gave them an opportunity to kind of realize that dream and play the kind of competition that they've always dreamed about week in and week out.
Coach, I know this has been a difficult offseason for the Penn State lacrosse family with the passing of goalie Connor Darcy. What are you choosing to do this season to honor him and keep his memory alive with this team?
Yeah, first and foremost, it has been very difficult, and the Darcy family still goes through the day-to-day. Realization that their son is no longer around, and they have been a pillar of strength. Mr. and Mrs. Darcy and their family have been wonderful. They've gone through obviously unthinkable time, but they have provided a great deal of strength for these young men and for our program, and it's given us great strength to carry on. So there's a number of different things that our guys have done, and it's been organic since the summertime, since Connor passed away, from his number 16, which will be worn by one of our captains, James Burke. I think that'll be the most symbolic, kind of an external show of support and kind of that opportunity to carry on his spirit. And I think the internal is just our guys really just want to do a great job, or as good a job as they can, to carry on his legacy and to carry on his spirit and make sure that we continue to make the Darcys proud, but also carry on his spirit long after they play here at Penn State. I think it's one thing to bring it out here on the field. I think that's short term. I think it's another thing to make sure that the relationship that we've all developed with Connor lives on for a lifetime. And I think if we can do that in some small way or shape or form, then we'll continue to keep the Darcy spirit alive at their home and hopefully carry on the Connor Darcy spirit here at Penn State.
Well, Coach, we look forward now to this upcoming season in 2016 for your team, and you return the majority of your starters from last year, including TJ Sanders, who was 5th in the Big Ten in goals per game last year. What are your expectations for his senior year on the attack for you?
Yeah, I think TJ's taken a lot of important steps through his first 3 years, and coming in as a freshman, he had a couple of great attackmen around him, and Shane Sturgis and Jack Forrester. He was on the receiving end a lot of their great play, and did a wonderful job of producing at some timely moments. I think during his sophomore and junior year, he's learned a lot, and he's had to carry his fair share with the ball, without the ball. So his leadership is essential this year. His productivity has dipped a little bit since his freshman year, and we're hoping that that's going to go up. He's worked very hard this offseason, and he's come in great shape and prepared both mentally and physically to lead this group of offensive players who's still just a little bit young, but now that the majority have another year under their belt. A lot of our guys that were playing for us offensively were sophomores and now have transitioned into their junior year. So he's still the leader there as a senior, and he's had a great preseason thus far, and we're hoping that he's going to continue to lead us in those key moments. And I think that will be, for us anyways, the key to his leadership, is that when we need something, we're going to have to look to TJ and hope that he's going to be able to produce in those clutch moments.
Well, staying on the attack, last year you moved Nickponte from the midfield to the attack, and that seemed to open up your offense a bit late in the season. Is that a move you intend to keep going this year, and how do you expect him to grow in that position?
We do, and we went through some growing pains last year, both by age and position. By age, we had a lot of sophomores on the field for us last year. Between our sophomore and junior class, that made up the majority of our starting lineup, and moving Nick down there, it was quite a transition for him. He had played midfield his entire career in high school, and then his entire freshman year here at Penn State. So there was an adjustment period, and we lived through that in the middle of the season. It wasn't like we gave him an opportunity to go through a preseason or an entire fall. And I take responsibility for that. That was a little unfair to ask Nick to make that kind of transition at that point in the year. But to his credit, he did it and did it extremely well. And I think with a year under his belt right now, he's a completely different player, and we continue to use him down at the attack. And it's also allowed Danny Craig to move up at the midfield, and I think we're going to be a little bit more dynamic there. We got some great athletes in our first couple of midfields and now down at the attack, and we're hoping that the chemistry is going to allow us a little bit more productivity this year.
You also returned Drake Crines at the faceoff X this year. He's one of the few returning faceoff specialists in the Big Ten with a lot of turnover at that position. What kind of experience and edge does that give you to have his experience at the X this year?
You know, I think there's two sides. One, what you see, and then his intangibles that he brings every day that we see, maybe as a coaching staff or his teammates see in the locker room. He is one of the hardest working young men I've ever been around as a player or a coach. He's one of three great captains that we have who are leading extremely well at the moment. And, you know, the intangibles that he brings to the field, his heart, his passion, his will to win, not just a face-off, but just his will to win in general, you know, really just can't be measured statistically. And you put on top of that what he does at the face-off X. He's not just a face-off guy for us. He can play offense. He can play defense. And we plan on probably expanding his role a little bit at both ends of the field, and hoping that he's going to create some matchup problems offensively, and help us not have to transition so much into the defensive end. So as a captain, he's done a great job. As a returner and as a leader on the field, he's done a wonderful job, and he means so much to us in so many different ways. So we're thankful to have him back. We got him back for 2 more years, and we're grateful for his leadership that he provides.
Looking at some of the newcomers now for your team, you added 16 freshmen this season. Out of that group, who's going to be a household name by the time the season comes to a close?
That's a great question, Mike. I really like our freshman class as a whole, so I'm hoping that our freshman class becomes one of those groups that becomes a signature name based on what they provide for our entire program. There's probably 5 or 6 of those guys right now that are making the transition to college at a pace that's probably a little bit quicker. Grant Ament's doing a great job at the attack. We got 3 middies in Kevin Hill, Matt Donnelly, Robbie Black, and then we got a long stick in Kevin Fox and Tommy Wright that are all doing a great job right now. I would say those guys have just probably transitioned just a little bit quicker. But I would say the group as a whole, all 16 of them, have provided a great deal of passion. They're lacrosse rats as a group, and they love the game. They spend a ton of time after practice in the weight room, on the field, without being instructed to do so. And I think they're changing the culture of our program. So I'm hopeful that as a group, these guys are going to really help push our seniors along into a great year this year, but also provide for a very, very bright future.
When you're out on the recruiting trail and talking to recruits and their families about getting a degree at Penn State, how do you describe the value of a Big Ten degree?
I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do so, and I think first and foremost, it has to be appropriate. I don't think there's any one school that is completely unique. I think it has to be appropriate to a family or to a young man or a young woman that is looking for something like Penn State. And I look at Penn State now with my wife and our family, and we moved here, and I think there's 3 ways to look at it. Number one, academically, you're talking about a world-renowned institution, but when you add to that the social experience and the athletic experience that you have, it becomes a fairly unique opportunity, especially in the sport of lacrosse, to have the athletics at the size and range and the depth that we have in each season. A safe community here in State College that is very vibrant, that cares a lot about what Penn State does, and Penn State obviously cares a lot about what the community does, and it works hand in hand. So as a father of 3 daughters at home, as the coach of 43 young men here, it's a wonderful combination for all of those things, and I love the connection that our guys get with our family, and I love the connection that our family gets with our guys. So, in that regard, it's tough to go wrong with the Penn State experience as a whole, and I think it's a wonderful experience that I've gone through, and I'm sure that our guys would say the same.
In 2013, you took Penn State back to the NCAA Tournament for the first time since 2005. I know there's a lot that goes into it, but what would you say is the key for this year to get back to the NCAA Tournament?
I think it's in one word. I think you could just say leadership. I think leadership provides, the opportunity throughout the course of the week of practice to play hard, to play with urgency, to play with great hunger. It allows you to manage certain game situations on the field, without having to do too much as a coach. It allows you to have the confidence and trust in your guys socially and academically that they'll make the right decisions, and all those things lead to your success. And you can't just look at one player or look at one game and expect that that's the answer. It's more of an intangible, and we've worked hard to communicate with our guys regarding the importance of leadership. But I also think our coaching staff is extremely comfortable and trust our leaders right now. Our seniors have done a great job, have a little motivation from all the experiences that they've been through, some very tragic, some very difficult, and some very, very positive. But I'd also focus on Drake Grimes, James Burke, Tommy O'Neill, our three captains, and say that if there was one way that I could kind of communicate to them about how we need to get back into that realm of thinking greater than just regular season, into the playoffs or even further, their leadership is going to be paramount in that direction and journey.
Penn State head coach Jeff Tambroni, we appreciate you taking the time and best of luck this year.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike.